Listen, if you get this word deep down in you and really believe it, your life is about to change today, because Paul has a powerful message to every single believer. And that message may be one that you've never really heard in this way before, because most of us see Paul as this prolific writer. We see Paul as this Saint Paul. We see him as a martyr and a progenitor, a giant in the Christian faith, author of over 2/3 of the New Testament, a man from whom God worked many miracles. But if you pay attention to Paul, he tells you something powerful about himself that is actually a revelation and a message to, for, and about you. Paul describes his own self as a wretched man. Paul describes himself as someone who wills good, yet is unable to perform it. Paul says of himself, of all the sinners, he is the foremost. He is the largest, the farthest, and the most egregious transgressor of all. Then Paul comes to us in Philippians and says, a wretched man, a man who wills good, but cannot perform it, a man who is the least of the apostles, and therefore he works the hardest, a man who, measured amongst all the sinners, is the worst one, the least qualified, the most incapable, the most inept, the most strung out, the most addicted, the most wrong, the most degraded. This man can do all things through a God with all power, all forgiveness, all mercy, all love and kindness. Through a God like this who strengthens a wretched man like me. So what is he telling you? If I am the worst and the weakest, you have a step ahead of me. If I can do it, how much more can you? Paul is telling you, no matter who is watching, who gets this message, what your mistake, what your ailment, where you're lame, where you're disabled, where you're sick, where you're strung out, where you're addicted, where you've made mistakes, where you're located, or where you're even locked up. With Jesus, you can.